Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, you're welcome to Face to Face. Congratulations on your renomination, because I mean, it's a new government. Everything is entirely different, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Including what?
Well, including, may I say, even the focal areas of government. We came to power in 2017 with an agenda that suffered a major shaking in 2020, the year in which we were expecting that the fruits of our labor will bear the most fruit. And so this second term starts off with a priority different from what we would have wanted it to be, which is to quickly get, among other things, the economy back on track. And when we've managed to get that done, now attempt to get back on that path that we started off on in 2017.
But the only thing that you haven't really changed completely is your determination to fight Galamsey. The president has made that very, very loudly clear that he is going to keep fighting until the water bodies are clear. Tell us what this new approach to fighting Galamsey is like. We've seen the soldiers and all of that, but it is going to be different from what we saw in 2017. And I want to say that the first one failed. How different is this new fight against Galamsey?
You are right in saying that the first one was not as successful as we would have wanted it to be. And it's for a number of reasons. The approach that we took on a lot together at the same time. We embedded soldiers and policemen in the forest reserves and along the water bodies with clear orders that they should help the nation in this cause. I think in the end, some success was achieved, but by the time the soldiers and the military left the forest reserves and the water bodies, you also noticed that there was an upsurge of irresponsible mining, sometimes illegal mining in many of these areas. So the net effect suggests that what we wanted to achieve was not exactly what we achieved. Now, you will notice that in this round, we have decided, or we have elected, not to embed the military and the police in the forest reserves and on the water body. So they go in and do a wave of an operation. In fact, as I'm speaking to you now, Operation Hall 2 is in its fourth wave on the Ankobra River and its tributaries. And by the time your program is airing tonight, they would have ended that so that tomorrow morning we can update. And if I look at the number of chamfine machines and excavators and water pumps that they've destroyed already so far, it suggests that by the time they pulled out, a lot more people went in to commit illegalities. Now this time, apart from just doing the waves to clear, particularly now what we call the red zones, which is the water bodies and the forest reserves. We haven't even gotten to the forest reserves yet, but the water bodies and 100 meters away from the water bodies. The armed air patrols by the Ghana Air Force has commenced, and we are sincerely hoping and praying that nobody will be recalcitrant enough to seek to go back there and therefore have confrontations with the officers of the Ghana Armed Forces. And then the district assemblies and the regional coordinating councils have been tasked with maintaining what would have been cleaned up. And the president is giving quite some very stern instructions to regional ministers and hopefully to MMDCs when they are appointed, that if it resurfaces within your catchment area, you have some questions to answer. Okay. There will also now be the need to clean up the water bodies properly. In fact, in parts of, let's say, the eastern region, you have major river bodies that have been diverted into ponds that will require a lot of dredging so that they can now begin to flow. You'd have to do some very massive land reclamation exercises and tree planting. So it's going to be in phases. Okay. But we are at the stage where they are clearing the water bodies and 100 meters away from the water bodies now.
I'll come so we talk more about successes that were chalked and maybe, of course, some failures that may have been recorded as a result of the exercise that I've embarked on. But let's talk about the very troubling detail of people wanting to have food on their table and you're asking them to stop what they're doing. Galamsey may be a crime, but it's also a source of livelihood. How, as a government whose job it is to provide food, able to explain to these people that you're going to remove them and still find food for them?
I love the way you put the question because it demonstrates that we need to nuance the language we are using. Government is not against Galamsey. Galamsey actually is small-scale mining. Government is not against small-scale mining. Government is against illegal and irresponsible mining. It so happens that a lot of the people involved in illegal and irresponsible small-scale mining are doing it on a small-scale basis. And so Galamsey has become a synonym for illegal and small-scale mining. But I think it's important that we continue to explain clearly what government is doing. Okay. And even in this phase, government has limited its action to water bodies. Mining in water bodies is illegal. 100 meters away from water bodies is illegal. There's no law.
Regardless of whether it's a serious company doing it.
In fact, there is no law that will give you power to mine or will give you a lease to mine in a water body.
Okay.
There's no permit to mine in a water body. And so what government is fighting is illegal and irresponsible mining, be you a large-scale miner or a small-scale miner. And if you are mining in a water body, that obviously is illegal, that obviously is irresponsible. Now, dealing with that does not mean that somebody who has a permit and is mining responsibly, that is legal and responsible mining, is affected by this. And that distinction has to be made quite clearly. If you want to mine, there are permits you need to secure, there are practices you need to go by, and you can do so legally and responsibly. If you choose to go mine in a water body, that is illegality, that is irresponsibility, and the president and his government and the forces of this country are committed to ensuring that that illegality does not continue. That is what we are dealing with currently.
Yes, but my question was more on how you are satisfying the people who may have been committing this illegality, maybe unknowingly, because it's your job again to provide them for
ignorance of the law. One, has never been an excuse.
It's never a defense.
Two, nobody, and we should not get into this space where we say I am an armed robber because I have nothing else to do, and if you stop me from armed robbery, you are denying me the right to find something to eat. Illegality is never been an option for economic activity that a country supports. We have to be clear on that.
Great.
Now, to the extent that people want to engage in economic activity, even in mining, there are legal and responsible ways to do it. Just last week, I think the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources even introduced new machinery that those who are doing galamsey, small-scale mining, that need to wash the raw materials, but ought not to use mercury, etc., could use some of those machinery and technology and methods. So even as we deal with illegal and irresponsible mining, all the other aspects of mining are allowed, legal, responsible, and are even supported by the state. So if anybody is talking about alternative livelihood, there's already space in that area. We do, however, acknowledge that as we finish with this first phase of Operation Halt 2 and start the exercise of dredging and reclaiming, it will be important to engage the communities and the people who may have been involved in some of these practices or who may have thought of it as not so bad, to pay more attention to the alternative avenues and get economic activity from those sides.
But I thought it was the job of the government. So you've used the armed robbery analogy. A responsible government would say people are engaging in robberies. It's illegal. They cannot justify why they did what they did. But look, we've provided youth employment agency here. Just go register and get a job.
Well, all of those options are available, Sanda.
And but specifically to these people who are working in the river bodies.
And that's why I'm specifically drawing your attention to the legal and responsible mining options which have not been prescribed. So if anybody wants to do mining today, he's allowed to do legal and responsible mining as an alternative to mining in the water bodies. Or you cannot justify the argument that I have diverted the course of the water body or the tributary into ponds that I've created, and I've put excavators in the riverbed and I'm mining. And if you say I should stop, then find me something else to do. We can't justify that argument. We have to be clear with everybody that there are legal and responsible ways of mining. Please go there and do that, but leave our water bodies alone.
In the previous fights, we were focused on the forest areas. Of course, we're doing the water bodies too, but now it seems like you're focused solely on the water bodies.
It's in phases. I think we have to deal with phase 1 and be satisfied that we've been successful with that. We've seen preliminary reports of turbidity levels in some of the water bodies improving, but we're of the view that it still requires some time because the turbidity levels may improve, but even the chemical compositions may still not have gotten to where you want them to get to. Now, you want to finish this first phase and have visible and empirical evidence that at least the water bodies and 100 meters away from the water bodies have now been protected. And then you move to the other phases. One of the lessons from the past is that when you take on a bit too much at the same time, sometimes it's difficult to see your points of success.
Have we taken an inventory of how much destruction we have caused yet? And I mean destruction in terms of burning of machinery.
I think at the last press briefing, the minister responsible for defense outlined those numbers. I can fetch them for you. The exercise is ongoing and will terminate later.
How smart is the decision to ban excavators on site when our district assemblies would need this machinery to dredge drains and so on?
Well, since that exercise started, the military has already counted about 700 excavators, I think between the Ashanti and the Eastern region, that have miraculously surfaced by the sides of the roads, ostensibly having been pulled out by persons who were using them either in forest reserves or close to water bodies, because they see that there's a lot of seriousness in this particular exercise. And if in previous times they were able to get away by compromising people or doing whatever they thought to do, it will not happen this time around. I think that's one very clear measure of the success. I think just last week at the cabinet sitting, the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources was also updating about 500 other excavators between Ashanti and somewhere in the Obuasi areas. There is visible evidence out there that people who are involved in illegality and irresponsibility are beginning to realize that there's a lot more seriousness to this particular enterprise perhaps than even before. People may have questions about the methods that are being used. What we know is that there's no illegality in the methods that the military are employing out there. And to the extent that those methods are effective and will help to protect the water body that your children and my children will look forward to in the near future, the president and the government are satisfied with their efforts.
You're a lawyer. You're saying that destruction of evidence even before trial is appropriate?
Well, this is not destruction
illegal
of evidence. You should read the case of Exton Cubic versus the Attorney General.
What does it say?
The High Court of Ghana, in a 69-page ruling, later affirmed by the Supreme Court, is quite clear that no person can file an action for damages based on illegality. Now, if the principle is clear that mining in a water body is illegal, we are respectfully very clear in our minds that no court will entertain an application to provide damages for somebody who is using these machinery to perpetrate illegality. And I think that we need to come to a clear understanding of that first level, that there's nothing illegal about what the officers are doing, especially if you look at the monumental nature of the damage that is being caused to the water bodies out there. I was at the banks of the Pra River. Sanda, if you have any conscience, you will weep when you stand at the banks of the Pra River. Aquatic life is dead, is gone. Right before your eyes, chemicals flowing from upstream coming downstream. The Ghana Water Company Limited pumps that are supposed to suck in water for treatment for the people of Cape Coast and other parts of the central region to drink, including babies, women, children. The pumps cannot even contain the level of chemical and silt that is coming in. So the pumps break down and they have to be buying. That is the amount of monumental damage that is being done to our water bodies. Now, if the courts are quite clear that illegality cannot be upheld for any sort of damages in this area, and Ghana Armed Forces, in executing the orders they've been given, opt for this particular path, we are pretty comfortable from the legal opinions that we have that we're on the firm track. Now, there are those who say, how about making those machines available for some other use? I think that those people should not mix the argument with illegality. We need to be clear on the question of legality or illegality. And if you say that you would prefer that those items are seized and used for alternative uses, it's a conversation we can have. We don't exactly share that view because we think that if you weigh the cost-benefit analysis, it is important to send a clear message out there that this will not be tolerated. It's also important to prevent a scenario where, in an attempt to immobilize and move and make available, you now get into all sorts of funny exercises of who took what where, etc.
So you were scared of your own shadow from your last administration, that under your watch 500 excavators disappeared like they were
well,
doves.
That is not a matter of fact. I think the minister responsible for that at the time explained that the numbers were not that.
But there were numbers.
The numbers were not that. It's thrown out there to create this sensational picture. But I think the government wants to be very clear.
The government is scared of protecting seized equipment.
The government is not going to get into that space of now mobilizing equipment and taking it elsewhere, now coming to have a conversation about, you know, who took what where.
You have soldiers, police. You can't protect your own seized vehicles.
Well, you can go off on that tangent, but for us, the clarity is what do we do to send the strongest signal to protect the water bodies out there? And we are clear that we're on.
But you did it the last time, so that's why we find it curious.
That this is more effective.
The last time you were again fighting illegality, but you didn't think you should ban them on site.
We think that this is more effective.
So you failed the last time.
We think this is more effective.
You failed the last time.
We think this is more effective.
Why did you choose this effective?
We think this is more effective.
The last one was ineffective.
We think this is more effective. We can do this 10 times. We think this is more effective.
It will end nowhere.
We think this is more effective.
It will just mean that you feel you're afraid of your own shadows.
More effective.
This is Face to Face on CITI TV, an effective interview with the Minister for Information on the issue of excavators that had disappeared at the time and the decision now to be burning. What about what they call the excesses of the burning? So their mandate to the soldiers is to burn the excavators on the water bodies. What about moving into communities and burning other people's excavators and these people going to court and proving that the excavator was burnt in their home? What happens?
It is within anybody's right to challenge in court what the Ghana Armed Forces is doing out there and to bring the necessary evidence that shows that I was not involved in illegal and irresponsible mining, and they extended their activities to my plot. Already there are some persons who've raised such concerns, and it is well within their right to raise those concerns. They will be investigated, but also those persons, like the President said, have an avenue to give oxygen to their positions. Now, in fighting illegal and irresponsible mining, we have found out that there are people or there are organizations that are licensed to mine and are actually not mining either in water bodies or 500 meters away from water, or 100 meters away from water bodies, sometimes as far as 500 meters away from the water bodies. But what they do is that they connect, because you need water for the mining enterprise. So they connect huge pumps and tubes to the water body, pull in the water for their mining operation, contrary to what the practices are, pull in the water, and then they dump back the water, silt, mud, chemicals, cyanide, mercury, back into the water body. The value is the same.
So indirectly they are mining.
The value is the same, and that is why when the Ghana Armed Forces find them involved in that sort of irresponsible mining practice, they take similar action against them.
In the past, you introduced an app, Galam Stop. I don't know what the status of that is. You introduced drones that are supposed to fly over these areas. I'm not sure what happened. There were soldiers on the ground. What you are doing now is not really new. The difficulty is that your soldiers go during the day and they leave, and in the night the people are back on the water.
We have found that in some instances,
yes, that's what they do.
Yes.
How are you going to deal with the night
activities? And so the Ghana Armed Forces is worked up strategy that they are going to use to deal with that one. I'm not at liberty to put those details out, but it's come on the radar. I think the last time the minister responsible for defense mentioned it and even warned that in the interest of the safety of the soldiers, when they start the night operations, your personal safety cannot also be guaranteed if you choose to go out there and mine at night. So it tells you clearly that it's something on their radar and they'll be dealing with it.
It's like a war, but what about...
It is a war. It's not like a war. It is a war. It is a war for the survival of the next generation. There are those who theorize that the next world war may be about water. And what is happening here in Ghana along some of our major river bodies? Today, you may think you are making 10,000, 20,000 cedis and you're a big man and you're affiliated to a political party, or you can get some people to do PR for you, and so it's okay. But what you are doing is that you are putting the lives of the next generation at risk. And if we don't fight that war now, posterity will judge us wrongly.
But again, the difficulty I'm seeing, Operation Halt. So you started from the western region, you kept moving. So you have a battalion that goes to a place, spends a week, and then leaves. And then what happens?
I've told you that the armed air patrols have started.
So
indeed, we have shown footage. Indeed, we have shown, I mean, there are different, may I say, groups. We've used sometimes about 250 men, all ranks, sometimes as high as 401. I think in the current Operation Halt, phase 4, they are using about 401 men, all ranks, depending on the extent of land and the nature of the terrain, as determined by the reconnaissance missions. They know the numbers to use. But when they are done and when they are back, the armed air patrols are going on. And that's why the minister has said, I have reiterated, that we are hoping that nobody will be recalcitrant enough to go back on the water bodies when the armed air patrols are ongoing.
But I mean, armed air patrols. How many helicopters do we have in the Ghana Armed Forces?
You try it.
I mean, I am not going to try it, but I'm just saying that if you move in and leave,
if something unfortunate happens,
why don't you secure the place?
Well,
by keeping armed men there?
No, we can't line up our soldiers and our policemen by the riverbanks ad infinitum. It's not feasible. It's not practical.
I mean, temporarily maybe.
We cannot. And then when you leave, what happens?
Your Chihini is making a proposal.
When you leave, I'm coming. When you leave, what happens? We cannot do that. It's not feasible. Let's be clear on that one. It's not feasible. We need to be clear with people who are conducting illegalities in this country that there are consequences. Now the soldiers, the police have swept those areas, have cleaned up the water bodies. The ability level is improving. We don't know about the chemical composition yet. The armed air patrols have started. Don't go there. Let's not get into a debate with why don't you put soldiers there? What if I go there? If you go there and something unfortunate happens, we're going to now have a conversation in this country about methods, etc. being used. Let's do the right thing.
Your party is going against your party women organizer. That's how it is seeming out there. It's
well,
like
then you have to correct what is seeming out there. Let's not repeat what is seeming out there.
So correct it for us.
The party is not going against the party's women's organizer. The Ghana Armed Forces, upon the instructions of the Commander-in-Chief, has commenced an operation to clear water bodies, 100 meters away from water bodies, of persons and logistics that are involved in mining on water bodies. There's a company which has the National Women's Organizer of the New Patriotic Party as one of its directors that has been affected by this exercise. We can proceed from there.
And she, regardless of what her party portfolio or party is, you're going to continue to fight her, even though she says she has the legitimate documents to do the business.
The company that is involved, according to the brief I have, is not the only company that was affected by this exercise. I think there's another company called Kibi Mining or so, which was also affected. They were also mining away from water bodies, had connected pipes. They were also affected. There are several other companies that have been affected. We must deal with matters on the face of the evidence of the persons involved. This is an artificial legal entity known as a limited liability company that has been affected by the actions of the Ghana Armed Forces as part of this operation. If the company is of the view that something untoward has happened, I'm sure the company will raise the requisite protest and have it investigated and will go the right route. If the Ghana Armed Forces have evidence that this, like all other companies, fell within the ambit of these operations, they will also provide same. Let's not make it about individuals and persons.
This is Face to Face on CITI TV. My guest is Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, Minister for Information. How do you react when you hear people accuse your government of being vindictive and also targeting journalists?
Well, I think, first of all, it's evidence that our democracy is growing and that people are at liberty to say anything at any time to anyone, including government. And sometimes, even when the facts don't support that particular narrative, they can keep repeating it over and over again. And that's only evidence that our democracy is growing. Today, and if you just go back from 1993 till today, Ghana has over 500 active radio stations across the country, over 140 television stations. Our social media is awash with retail production channels, sometimes by individuals, that are on a daily basis churning out content that is supportive of government, content that is very critical of government. People are broadcasting locally and internationally, sometimes even very insulting language at chiefs, media, government people, religious leaders. That is a very robust and feisty media environment, as robust as you can get it. Indeed, this morning I was at the Federation of African Journalists Conference that's taking place in Ghana. And while they make the point that they chose Ghana because of Ghana's excellent record in media freedoms, I think even at the event, one of the speakers makes the point that if you map it, this is one of the best times to be a journalist, not just in Ghana, but across Africa, because the channels and the room for us to express our thoughts are as open as possible. You are sitting here with me in my office, disagreeing with methods of government, raising it, and you're doing so freely. We must admit that there are sporadic reports of, for example, an attack on a journalist here or there. But we will be untrue to the scenario if we say that those sporadic incidents mean that there's no free atmosphere in Ghana for journalists to practice their work. I don't think that that is a narrative.
Sporadic. The last time the Media Foundation for West Africa came up with a list, it was over 100. You're calling that sporadic?
So if you go into statistics, I would ask you 100 out of what? If it's 100, for example, out of 100 million, it will qualify to be described in a particular way. If it's 100 out of 100, it will qualify to be described in a particular way. But one is still one too many. The bigger point is this: what is the atmosphere for media work here in this country? I say in all humility that journalists are very free to go about their work. However, you may have one or two incidents of infractions on the work of journalists. We must condemn it and we must deal with it. But it ought not to mean that we should undermine the same thing that we are all enjoying and cast a narrative that, you know, in Ghana you are not free to express yourself. Because, Sanda, when we do that, what happens is that the international community watches us and listens to us. And the same goods that we desire for ourselves collectively, we undermine it. Let's pick the specific instances and deal with it. And let's not cast a narrative that in the end will do all of us a lot more harm than good.
The president, when he spoke on this, said that people don't get knocks on the door at night anymore, but people get knocks on their virtual media space every now and then. That is a problem, isn't it?
On their virtual media space to do what? To disagree with what they have said?
Well, not only disagree, but to
do what? Attack, meaning what's the definition of attack?
There could be verbal attack and physical attack.
So are journalists attacking other people?
No, journalists
because my understanding is that when you, Sanda, for example, do an editorial and you say, Minister Oppong Nkrumah, I disagree with this position that you have taken. This is not the right way to go. You can even be insulting about it. I don't interpret it to mean that you are attacking me. I interpret it to mean that, one, we're in a democracy, two, you are expressing your thoughts in this democracy. Why is it that when you post that thing on your social media and somebody comes on it and disagrees with you, Sanda, I disagree, this is poor journalism, that is interpreted as an attack? When it's on you, it's an attack. When it's on me, it's not an attack.
No, if it ended just that, it wouldn't be an attack. But if it gets physical...
No, you're talking about social media.
No, yes, I'm saying that it's a physical and
attack,
verbal.
No, physical and verbal attack, totally unacceptable, and we can all put it in that context. But and that's the president's point.
Yes, it was under this president's tenure that two journalists will speak from their office with polythene bags on their head. No, we haven't shifted at all. I'm just giving you further examples.
Let's deal with the comment on virtual.
Yes.
The president's point was that when you make a comment and somebody comes and gives you feedback or disagrees with you as part of free expression, that ought not to be interpreted as part of a culture of silence.
Because that what it strengthens the one who goes out to attack you.
No, it doesn't.
That's what it does.
When you criticize me, does that strengthen somebody to
I do not have
me?
An armed force, which is plain clothes or uniform.
It doesn't matter. You are saying that it will
if,
strengthen the hand of somebody to come at me.
Yeah.
I'm saying I disagree with you. Listen, we must all uphold our democracy and the principle of free speech in our democracy. I may disagree with what you say, but I should defend to the hilt your right to say it. Let's put that on one side. And then let us also agree that, however, I ought not to, and I ought not to support anybody who chooses to attack you physically by virtue of the work that you are doing. We can agree on those. Now, if you say that by virtue of the fact that somebody has come into your virtual space to disagree with you, or to say that what you have said does not conform with the rules or whatever, that amounts to silencing you. That is the president's point, that does not fall into the basket of the things that we consider as a culture of silence.
But if they just disagreed and moved on, that would be disagreement. I mean, as a journalist, you know that you can write an editorial and get a counter-editorial. It's fine.
Absolutely.
That's before social media.
Absolutely.
But if someone comes to verbally abuse you, they open the door for further attacks, and now these attacks are going to grow from being virtual.
I don't subscribe to verbal insults or to abuse, but I've just told you, I get insulted on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The president gets insulted on it. We in government get insulted on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Now, as much as maybe I may not care about it or I may not worry about it, I don't subscribe to it. But I'm saying that ought not to be the way we say our democracy is now being undermined if it happens to you. Because if it's our culture that we are people who are always insulting each other, And that is a culture in this country which we must generally fight against. And it ought not to be secluded to say that, however, when you are insulted, though we are insulting one another, then it means that there's a culture of silence. So I think the point is that this attempt to define a clapback or a question or a call out of a journalist as part of a culture of silence cannot stand. There are things that we must deal with. And I've told you, I mean, recently we just opened an office to uphold the safety of journalists because we are concerned about
I'm actually going to ask
incidents.
you how that office is doing, but let's remain a bit more on the track record of this government.
Just let me land on this one because we are concerned about some of the incidents of physical attack, etc., on journalists. And I think we can all agree and deal with that. But I think what the president is saying, and we should be able to grant him that saying that when a journalist is questioned or called out or given feedback is part of the culture of silence, that one we cannot agree on.
This physical attack, two journalists from Modern Ghana were picked up and they had polythene bags used to cover their head and they were transported to the national security outfit. My own colleague recently was brutalized. You've heard followed the story. In a democracy, should we have a system like that?
In a democracy, should a journalist, when suspected of having been committed a crime, be arrested, questioned, and perhaps prosecuted? I say yes. Any member of society.
Under what law?
I'm coming. No, when he's suspected of having committed a crime.
A crime, okay.
I'm coming.
Outside journalism.
So a journalist, and I am number one to defend a journalist, but a journalist is not above the law.
Yes.
So if a journalist commits a crime or is suspected of having committed a crime, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that journalist being invited or arrested, questioned, prosecuted for it.
So that's if a journalist jams a red light. That's
coming.
a crime.
No.
The journalist shoots someone. That's a crime.
I'm coming.
Please tell me what
I'm coming.
crime.
I'm coming.
Okay.
I'm coming. If I develop my argument, I'm
Go
sure you would get to me. What we will all not subscribe to is unethical conduct by any state security agency, be it police, military, or national security. That is unacceptable. If I am suspected of having committed a crime, I would expect to be treated in accordance with the standard operating procedures, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if I am manhandled, beaten, covered with a balaclava or polythene bag or something, those are not in accord with the standard operating procedures. And I think we should be able to recognize these two things and call out that which is wrong. Not the general attempt to, for example, say that this person has been involved in X or Y or Z or been suspected even of X or Y or Z. Now, in the instance of the recent national security matter with my friend Caleb, the National Security Ministry immediately conducted an internal inquiry and came to the view that the officers who have been sent on secondment from the military and the police to the National Security Ministry did not conduct themselves in accordance with standard operating procedure. And therefore, very quickly, they said, we don't want these gentlemen on secondment to us. And they've been sent back to their mother agencies. Now, know that the national security apparatus or the National Security Ministry, if we are objectively following, has been going through some reforms for a while now. Again, let's go back to our history. We had this thing, this amorphous BNI animal that you couldn't tell whether it was an investigative animal or an intelligence gathering agency.
Which you have rebranded nicely.
It's not about rebranding. Go and read the law. And the focus is quite clear. Now they are being reformed to become an intelligence gathering agency. There are, in fact, about two agencies under it. There's the National Intelligence Bureau, and they are all being reoriented and reorganized to go that way, that it is intelligence that we want you to gather, not to be walking around as macho men threatening people.
Okay.
And then you have the National Signals Bureau. I want to even admit to you that there's a group of people under the ministry that they call national security operatives. And it is important to even reform
civilians.
Well, they are not civilians if they've been recruited. You are a civilian until you are recruited into the police. The moment you are recruited into the police, I cannot say that you are a civilian wearing police
maybe
uniform.
I mean the uniformed ones.
And I think that is a dangerous way we characterize that one, because now when you start throwing out that thing that they are civilians walking around, and you undermine the fact that these are people who've been recruited into a security agency, you may not agree with the operations of the security agency. What you now begin to do is that you begin to endanger them even when they are going about legitimate work. So I'm saying that even these people called operatives, recruited properly so-called in a state security agency under a ministry, their role has to be properly structured, and it's part of the reforms that is ongoing. I think it is fair for us to focus on that and say, we acknowledge what you've done with NIB and Signals Bureau, but this operatives thing, we need to tidy it up and tidy it up quickly. And I think we can all agree on that and deal with that quickly. But when we bundle it all together and say civilians, this, that, it becomes even difficult for the person leading the reform exercise to get the internal support from an institution like the national security apparatus to succeed with it. And I think we should support the minister to reform the entity.
Minister, so talking about reformation and you're worried about how we describe these people, I have seen a photograph from a CCTV footage of a gentleman who is wearing a smock, wearing a mask, and carrying a gun. I've seen another gentleman wearing, I think it's just a jacket and a mask and carrying a gun. Now, typically that's how, when I watch movies, armed robbers enter banks to rob people.
That is fair. Stay there.
Explain to me why I should not
stay there. Typically as well, and you have left out a part. And you need to balance it. Balance is key. Typically, when you also watch all of these international things about intelligence agencies all over the world, you see them in suits and other civilian appearing clothing, armed and conducting operations. Let's add that to it. So what you do when you see that is that you rather raise a question: who are these people and what are they?
Not when those who raise questions are being beaten. 2 immigration officers were assaulted by these people who were asking. Immigration officers, these are officers of the law,
I'm saying that
being assaulted. A journalist, but it scared me. Why would I come close asking questions when I've seen that even immigration officers are being assaulted?
If in the midst of their operation, there have been excesses, that can be dealt with in their line.
Excesses, you call them. Abuses of human rights.
Sandra, you can use all the words, but I'm saying
that would be more appropriate, I think.
Well, that's fine. But you see, this is the beauty of a democracy. You can have some words, I can have some words. It's fine. And you are not silencing me. Are you silencing me? You're not silencing me.
I'm not silencing you. I'm just
you
saying that
different words from mine. I have no problem with that.
I'm just saying that as a government official, I would rather you use a word which is more befitting of what the action was than what you have sugar-coated it to me.
No, you see, you're allowed to have your choice of words.
Okay.
And I'm allowed mine.
I shouldn't bully you to pick my words.
Don't silence me. But here's the point I'm making. If, however, in describing what has transpired, we want to have it, we can ask questions. What is this? What is going on? And having understood what is ongoing, that, this is a national security operation that actually led to the cracking of a syndicate that was operating gambling. I've seen it on the front pages of the newspapers this morning. Gambling.
Since May 7th, it's now coming on the front page of the newspapers.
No, apparently it was earlier reported, and I've seen more reports this morning.
The earlier reports were about attacks on immigration officers.
No, it's not true.
Do you not think that the information...
Sandra, what you've just said is not true. The earlier reports included the fact that the national security operatives had raided this place and had found these people there. These people are before court.
And they attacked immigration officers.
No, please, that's not... That was not.
Maybe you haven't seen that report.
Don't let me get into some of these petty things with you.
No, listen, I can get.
You know that these people are before court.
Yes.
These people who were arrested in this operation are before court.
Yes.
We have to make a choice. Are we on the side of the law enforcement authorities, or are we on the side of people who are committing crime?
We're on the side of the law enforcement agencies, so far as they do it in a decorous manner.
Please.
Let's move on.
Please.
You have done journalism for 10 years.
Please. I'm coming.
Yes.
I'm coming. If we are of the view that their modus operandi needs to be amended, I'm saying let's support the minister to get that part. You remember earlier in my submissions, let's support the minister to clean that part up. But let us not sweep it all under one bracket. If they don't do some of the jobs that they are doing, you and I will not have a safe state within which we are living.
But we support the minister. We supported Emil Short. We provided coffee and air conditioning in their office for a month.
As the minister is going about the minister is going about the reforms in the ministry, having reformed the National Intelligence Bureau, having reformed the Signals Bureau, now dealing with this thing they call operatives under the ministry. I think it helps when we pay attention and interrogate it and assist the minister or support his efforts to even reform that final arm of it. In the end, we'll have an apparatus that is able to deliver for our collective benefit. If we bandy it all together, and call them civilians and,
khaki wearing,
they are wearing khaki and they are wearing this,
mask wearing,
you may end up with a scenario where the minister himself, who is more or less contending with an elaborate structure to try and reform it, may not have the kind of support that is required to succeed in that space. And I think it's very important.
In your earlier submission, you said if a journalist commits a crime, you have no difficulty. And of course, I would also have no difficulty if a criminal is arrested. But you've served as a journalist for more than a decade. What constitutes a crime in journalism?
Oh, journalism itself is not a crime.
Okay.
When a journalist, for example, hacks into the cyber system of an entity.
Allegedly.
and it is found that that is what has transpired, that could constitute a crime.
And when a journalist goes filming at a national security outfit?
If there are clear restrictions on filming there, that could constitute a crime. What is important is that, so to the extent that the security agencies there are of the view or even suspect a crime is being committed, they are not out of their place to courteously invite this person, question this person, and if they are of the view that this person has committed a crime, proceed to even charge that person or prosecute that person. I'll tell you something, just last 2 weeks, there was a national event ongoing, and a freelance journalist appeared and sought to cover the event and actually ended up committing the crime of impersonation, called the name of somebody else and another media house, and was accredited and allowed in. A few hours later, the actual person from that actual media house came in, and then they realized that somebody had impersonated him. He was arrested and sent to Tesano police station. We had to go and ensure that he was bailed. That is an instance in which the security agencies are well within their ambit to suspect a crime was being committed, to arrest that person, and to take that person through the process. What we cannot condone is that when they arrest such a person, they manhandle him or beat such a person up. That we cannot condone. It is improper. And we should be able to separate the two. That, dear journalist, do not do this.
Okay.
Dear security official, do not do this. And I think that we can
collaborate.
We can chew gum and walk at the same time.
We can always do that. The office you've set up, how many people have brought petitions to you?
I haven't checked the latest update, but what we need to do is to encourage an ecosystem that consistently promotes the safety of journalists. That's one of their primary jobs, to consistently promote the safety of journalists, to also assist us in doing broader education for all stakeholders in the community to understand the need to protect journalists in their work.
Okay.
Also to assist we in the industry with some basic training that enhances our security. And then finally, where there are instances of people who have been, or people who are alleged that they've been attacked, to receive a report and ensure that the proper investigation is done. And I like what is going on. So National Security has done its internal inquiry, but the NMC has not stopped its work. It's going through the processes. It will proceed. It will make the hearings. If the NMC is of the view that what National Security has done is inadequate, they should be free to say so. If they think it's adequate, they should be free to say so. If they think the journalist was wrong, they should be free to say so. That is how you build an ecosystem that
You have said you don't find any problem with someone clapping back at someone on the virtual space.
You clap back at me every time.
I try.
And I don't have a problem with
There are a number of people who went on social media and said, fix the country. And then government operatives came and said, fix yourselves. That's a clapback you endorse.
Who are these government operatives?
Oh, I mean, persons who are sympathetic to the government. So that's what I mean by operatives.
And I like the way you put it. These are persons who are sympathetic to the government, at least in your opinion. First of all, I was disappointed when I heard people say that that's a government response. Because that couldn't have been the government response. I speak for government. I never said that. The minister responsible for finance was the first to address a full press conference on it. He never said that. The Minister for National Security was the first to meet the people who convened this platform. He never said that. The Vice President was the very first to issue a text on it. He never said that. Indeed, all government persons who spoke said that this is a healthy conversation because, Sanda, it gave us an opportunity to mainstream something we've been trying to put on the table for a while now. Unfortunately, it appears to be losing traction. But what Fix the Country did or can do is give us an opportunity to have these national conversations about what it takes to fix various things around us. Now, if some persons who are sympathetic to government gave a response, I saw some media personalities themselves who were taking on their colleague media personalities. I think that it was unfortunate for some persons to say that is the media response. I mean, that's the government response. Or even for some persons to go further and characterize people who have views other than theirs, that they must have been paid to be expressing those views. I think we should be careful not to undermine people's right to free expression by just tagging that, Sanda, I love your interviews. You are a tough, probing person with your tricky questions. I laugh sometimes when I listen to answers that, we ourselves give to your tricking questions. But I'll be the first to defend you that Sanda is not doing this because he's on anybody's payroll. And I think it's dangerous for us to begin to characterize that Sanda must be doing this because he's on somebody's payroll. And I think in the reverse, we should protect the space for free expression that when somebody disagrees with Sanda, just like how Sanda is not on somebody's payroll, it doesn't mean that that person is also on somebody's payroll. They may have different views, and in the end, what we want is to build a stronger country for ourselves, albeit from different perspectives.
How troubling is Mali for us, and how far are we willing to go? Because we have our own troubles, though.
Sanda, the Malian situation is dangerous for ECOWAS, and I think that all of us have to be very, very worried about it. If you look at 2012, Mali was on a trajectory until 2012, destabilized. Then I think the Boubacar Keïta government was elected. And the challenge is that whenever Mali goes into disarray, the insurgency that is growing in the Sahel region finds greater foot. So now, if you study what is happening in Chad, take Chad, take Burkina Faso, about half of the country is being affected by insurgent activity. Take Niger. Nigeria has its own challenges. And the instability in Mali is breeding a safe haven for insurgent activity. And it is coming southward, gradually coming southward by the day. So it is important that that instability is resolved and that Mali has a constitutionally elected government that is accountable to the people and can deal with things, including the security situation. This is the second time that the military has put a wedge in the progress, and it is something of severe concern to the chair of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State, President Akufo-Addo, and colleague heads of state. And that's how come he called this emergency summit on Sunday, and they were able to take what some will consider some very tough and pragmatic decisions, hoping that Mali can get back on track by February 2022.
Usually we want to see ECOWAS biting, but we don't even have the strength to bite. Are we really going to be able to bite?
The last time Gambia went into trouble, when Yahya Jammeh refused to hand over
sent 300
power,
soldiers, only 300.
Ghana sent 300.
Yes.
What else did other ECOWAS countries contribute? So ECOWAS was able to mobilize a force, and it was effective because Yahya Jammeh recognized that if he didn't move, he will be moved,
He'll be crushed.
and he responded to it. Now, in this particular instance, you have another route, which is to get the country back on constitutional footing by February 2022 as part of that 18-month timetable. And I think what the president of Ghana, chair of the ECOWAS Authority, and the ECOWAS heads of state want to see happen is that that program must be respected so that Mali will get back on track. You may not need to send soldiers.
There are people who think that let's do the Diufiasem politics so that, I mean, the Malian problem
Diufiasem has been proven to be a foreign policy that doesn't work, a foreign policy approach that doesn't work.
So we must be involved
We
and
must
interfere
be
at all times.
involved. If you are not involved in it, it will come back and haunt you on your doorstep.
But what if you're involved and they remember that, oh, Ghana says we have
That
to
is
go
why
there.
you need a collective approach. And President Akufo-Addo called the Accra consensus meeting that managed to get, a number of indeed the entire bloc to collaborate on sharing intelligence and acting together to respond. You can't sit in your individual country say, I'm thinking about myself, I'm thinking about myself. It will come and haunt you.
So we
You've
need
got
to
to
fight
deal with it, yes.
Honorable Minister for Information, thank you for speaking to us. We couldn't speak to the people of Ofuasia Yerebi. Next time we'll do so.
You should come to Ofonse next time for your next interview.
Are your roads good?
We are beginning to see bitumen on at least 3 of our major roads. You should come visit us.
Bitumen, that's good.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
so the year of road is working for you.
In my constituency.
It's not working in mine. I hope that it works.
I'll come and visit you and see.
In fact, I've been told by my producer that we should talk a little more about roads. So the second year of roads,
Yeah.
There's an agenda to build roads.
Yes,
The
about
city
6,000 kilometers program to be completed out of an 11,000 kilometer stretch that has been rolled out.
So you are benefiting, and it has nothing to do with the fact that the Minister for Roads is your neighbor.
May or may not. He's not my neighbor exactly. He's in the same region as I am. But may or may not. As a member of parliament, I go and lobby for my roads just as other members of
How
parliament
did we
do.
fare with the last year of roads?
We did about 4,000, close to about 4,000 kilometers of roads in the first term of the Akufo-Addo administration. And first, you have to compare that to every other 4 years. How much was done in every other 4 years? And I think the jury will be clear that that has been one of the most, in fact, the most significant number that we've done in 4 years. And if every 4 years we're able to do that, we will go very far. The real problem about our roads is something that we are shying away from in this country. How are we funding the road program? If the road fund is yielding about 1.2 billion Ghana cedis a year, and you have commitments of 8 billion Ghana cedis,
The deficit is.
and you don't want to grow your deficit,
You have to win.
you have a problem. And we have to, contend with it. Additionally, we are even being asked to lift the cap on the road fund, and I think that is a good ask. It needs to be lifted so that even the full amount can go to the road fund. But beyond that, even that amount is not enough. We need to find ways of funding it some more. We need to find ways of ensuring that the consultants and technocrats are doing a decent job on our roads. We need to find ways of ensuring, and I think Minister has done that already, that the contractors are doing a good job. So now warranty is now 5 years. You don't do a shorty job for 1 year and run away. It's going to be yours to maintain for 5 years. And we need to confront this roads conversation because we all want good roads. But we have to add the other part of the conversation to it. How do we fund the roads?
I've heard the Minister for Roads say we're going to have a number of interchanges by 2024.
Yeah.
Talks about dualizing Accra Kumasi by 2024.
Yeah.
The Sino Hydro project has failed, hasn't it?
No, it hasn't failed. You've
The
seen
interchange that you are doing.
No. You've seen the Tamale interchange.
Yes.
There are also about 4 other major road projects. He put the whole detail out there.
They are all being done?
They are all being done at different stages of completion.
So the China money is here?
He put the whole detail out there. The China money is here and is working. Has it been 100% completed? No. But you cannot say it's failed. All the data was out there. He put it out.
So have we started digging the bauxite in the Etiwa forest?
No,
yet?
we haven't started that.
I don't know how, that's how we're
No,
supposed to pay
but
for it.
it was
or?
a barter agreement that they will come and they will do roads to the quantum of a certain amount of money.
And destroy our
And
forests.
no, not destroy our forest. The
Galamsey.
EP, no, they didn't say they are coming to do Galamsey. They are coming to do mining that will be regulated. They will not be coming to do
In a reserve.
illegal and irresponsible mining. And if they do, the EPA and the authorities will ensure it doesn't happen. But the proceeds of that is what we are going to use to repay for the works that they are doing.
So we should be waiting. It will happen.
It is happening.
We can end it here now. Thank you so much, Honourable
you,
Minister,
Sandra.
for information. Chief Government Spokesperson, MP of Wase